You've probably seen them scurrying around your backyard, right? But the humble gray short-tailed opossum is hiding a seriously powerful secret. It's got this totally unique way of fighting off disease that's making scientists rethink what we know about immunity. And today, we're going to crack it wide open.
So what is it about these little guys that's so fascinating? What makes their immune system so different? Well, that's the big mystery we're diving into. It's this amazing puzzle that starts deep inside their DNA and shows us a completely different path that evolution can take to build a defense system.
Okay, but before we can really get what makes the opossum so special, we need a quick boot camp on our own immune system. So just imagine for a second that your body is a fortress. Your main line of defense against all those invading germs is this incredible army of highly specialized proteins.
And these proteins, they're called antibodies. You can think of them as these little Y-shaped security keys. Each one is precision cut to fit the lock on a very specific invader. So when an antibody locks onto a virus, boom, it tags it for destruction.
So, how in the world does your body create millions and millions of different keys? Well, it uses this really clever, kind of Lego-like system. See, every single antibody is built from two main parts, a heavy chain and a light chain. By mixing and matching a huge variety of these parts, your body can build a massive arsenal of unique antibodies, ready for just about any threat that comes its way.
All right, now that we've got the basics down, let's get back to our star of the show, the marsupial. Immunologists have actually known for a while that opossums just don't play by the same rules as other mammals, like us. And the very first clues to this mystery popped up when scientists compared their immune toolkit to our own.
And wow! The differences are huge. First off, marsupials are totally missing an entire class of antibody, something called IgD. And second, remember those heavy and light chains that build our antibody keys? Well, while we have a ton of variety in both, the opossum has very, very few heavy chain options. So to make up for that, it has to have an incredibly diverse set of light chains.
Yeah, the researchers studying this called it a known puzzle. It's kind of like a locksmith who only has a few types of blank keys, but still needs to make millions of unique ones. They have to get super creative with how they cut the keys. And for the opossum, that means relying almost entirely on its light chains. But believe it or not, the story gets even weirder.
So for years, scientists could really only see this big picture, kind of the 10,000-foot view. But then, a new technology came along that allowed them to zoom in on this puzzle like never before, to look at the immune system not as a big crowd, but one single cell at a time.
And that tool is single-cell RNA sequencing, and it is an absolute game changer. It basically let researchers put individual B cells, those are the tiny factories that make antibodies, under a microscope. For the very first time in any marsupial, they could see exactly which heavy and light chains were being paired up inside each cell. They could finally see the precise key each little factory was making.
So one of the first things they found was a catalog of all the different B cell types, and a whopping 76% of them were making an antibody called IgM. Now this is super important because IgM is the first responder antibody. It's the type your body makes when it sees a new threat for the first time. That high percentage told scientists the opossum hadn't been fighting any infections recently, which gave them a perfect, clean baseline of its natural immune state.
Okay, so with this clean baseline set, the researchers started digging into the light chain data. They were pretty much expecting to just confirm what they already knew about how diverse they were. But instead, they found something that completely blew all their predictions out of the water.
Now, to really get this next part, you just need to know one more thing. There are two main flavors of light chains that mammals can use. They're called kappa and lambda. Our bodies use both, but you see different preferences across the animal kingdom.
And here's where the big twist comes in. When you look at the opossum's genes, its toolkit for making kappa light chains is way more complex than its toolkit for lambda chains. So the logical assumption, the one everyone made, was that the opossum would mostly use the more complex kappa system. I mean, it makes sense, right? More parts should mean more options.
But that is not what they found. Not even close. Against all expectations, the opossum overwhelmingly preferred to use the simpler lambda system. A full 65% of its antibody factories were using lambda chains, and only 35% were using the more genetically complex kappa system. It's wild.
Yeah, when you boil it all down, the final ratio was roughly 2-to-1 in favor of lambda. This just completely flipped what all the genetic evidence seemed to be pointing to. The opossum had this bigger, more complicated toolkit ready to go.
but it consistently chose to use the simpler one. So, okay, this is more than just a weird biological fact. This one single opossum tells us something really profound about evolution and all the different ways that life can solve the exact same problem. In this case, the problem of just staying alive.
So what's the big takeaway here? Well, it turns out the ratio of these light chains is just all over the place in mammals. Mice are 95% kappa, but dogs are 91% lambda. The opossum just adds another fascinating piece to the puzzle, and it reminds us of two really important things. First, evolution doesn't have a single best way of doing things. And second, just because a system is genetically more complex, it doesn't automatically mean it's the one that gets used the most.
And that really just leaves us with this final thought. I mean, if one regular unimmunized opossum in a lab can completely challenge our basic assumptions about how immunity works, it really makes you wonder, right? What other incredible biological secrets are just out there, waiting for us to find them, hidden in plain sight in the animals all around us?